First of all, let me first welcome our resource person today, Captain Vivek Shanbhag. He was the captain of Air India. He is an electronic engineering graduate with distinction. He has about 21 hours of flying experience, and as a flight instructor, he has trained hundreds of pilots on the Airbus fleet. As an executive pilot, he has vast experience in flight safety, training, operations, and is also a quality management systems auditor. During any national crisis, he has always volunteered for rescue and relief flights. After the tsunami, he took the first flight to Port Blair with supplies in spite of a damaged runway and no air traffic services. He has conducted rescue operations from Libya, evacuating hundreds of Indians from war zone. Also during the Chennai floods, he was first one to land at Chennai airport with relief materials. When he is not flying, he keeps himself busy with exotic hobbies like sailing, rowing, scuba diving, trekking, mountaineering, and motorbiking. He has won many medals at national and international events. During the current pandemic, international flights have been cancelled. This has affected the shipping industry very badly. Thousands of people are stuck on ships even for more than a year and unable to return home. So he has started a charter flight company. Permissions are obtained from government to operate flights to Colombo airport to pick up seafarers who come in ships to Colombo harbor. Once they land in Chennai, they are quarantined for 7 days and after medical tests go home to their families. Also, there are many Indians in Sri Lanka who lost jobs and cannot afford a flight. Such folks are brought back to India free of charge on the charter flights. Today we have an eminent personality who has got a distinguished career in the aviation industry. We are also joined with Ms. Elsie Das, retired chief hostess of Air India, who is also a good friend of Captain Shanbhag, who has helped us to get Shanbhag today on this program. I'm immensely happy on behalf of the management, faculty members, principals, head of the department, and everyone to welcome Captain Shanbhag to this program. Thank you, sir, for having accepted our invitation. And we are sure that the students in this program, there are more than 100 students who have already logged in. We are sure that they will all have a very good knowledge sharing experience in this webinar program. Thank you everyone for joining, and once again I thank our resource person and I hand over the session to Captain Shanbhag. Thank you.
A very good morning to the faculty of the AJK College of Arts and Science, and most importantly, a good morning to the students attending this session, as well as my colleague Elsie Das. And aviation is a very exciting career and an industry. If you go back into history, since times immemorial, man has always been fascinated by the birds and always wanted to fly. Yeah? If you listen to our Ramayana mythology, we hear about the Pushpak Vimana. There is no proof as such for this, but then you never know. I mean, what you would discover about this Pushpak Vimana, but the concepts were very much there. Yeah? So in 1903, the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, They are the ones who take credit for inventing the heavier than air aeroplane. And their first flight took place on 17th December 1903. It was just for 12 seconds. Yeah, a small aeroplane flew just for 12 seconds, and the distance flown was 120 feet. Today, if you look at a modern aeroplane, it is so huge. The length of the aeroplane is more than 300 feet. That the Wright brothers could have actually taken off and landed inside an aeroplane of today's dimension. So that is the amount of what I can say the progress that has come into aviation. 1903, as I said, the first flight took off, and in 1969, already man had put the first astronaut on the moon. That was in somewhere in 1969 when Apollo 11 went. So that is the pace at which aviation is actually improving. Yeah, and billions of dollars are put into aviation, and it is really moving ahead with leaps and bounds. And today, aeroplanes are routinely flying at around 800 kilometers per hour, and they can even fly for about 20 hours non-stop and go from any part of the earth, any part of the globe to any other city. And they can easily carry about 400 people. Yeah. And today, aviation offers huge opportunities for a career in aviation management. And what I feel is that people who are opting for aviation management definitely have good prospects. Yeah. So I would like to make a small presentation. So I will switch over to my PPT and let you know how the presentation comes up. If we look at broadly aviation, we can classify it into military and civil aviation. And today we will focus on the civil aviation. That is where we are looking at it. And like I told you that there are very huge prospects for a career in aviation for the simple reason that the industry is growing at a rate of 18% per annum. Yeah. If you look at all other industries, probably this is one of the best growth rates, 18% per annum. Obviously, this was just before the pandemic came in. Yeah, so this 18% is probably the fastest growing aviation in the world. So a career in aviation is definitely worth looking at from this point of view. Pandemics come, and in no time we should be going back to our normal lives. So it should not be really looked as a setback for aviation. It's just a short term. You can say little less of aviation at the moment, as well as all other industries also. Now let us quickly look at how does an aeroplane fly. If you look at the right side picture, that is a cross section of a wing. Yeah, the upper surface is curved, it's called a camber, and lower surface is flat. So when the aeroplane moves, there is air that is going above the wing and below the wing. Above the wing, the area is more. The air has to cover more area because it has to take a curved path, whereas below the wing, the path is straight. So when air moves in different directions over the wing, there is something called a Bernoulli's principle. Yeah? And by this principle, we know that there is high pressure below the wing and there is low pressure above the wing. So what it means is the wing lifts up because of the high pressure below the wing actually lifts up. And along with the wing, the whole aeroplane also lifts up. Yeah, so that is how on this Bernoulli's principle, the lift is created on an aeroplane and the aeroplane can actually fly. If you look at the left side diagram, there are four forces. Gravity is acting downwards, the lift is acting upwards. So as long as the lift is higher, the aeroplane can climb into the air. Then the thrust is what the engines are giving the aeroplane, the forward movement. And there's a resistance in the air called the drag. So this means that as long as the thrust is higher than the drag, the aeroplane can accelerate forward. So this is basically how all aeroplanes, the fundamentals of aeroplanes is by these two diagrams. Now let's move to the next slide. Yeah, when we say aviation is growing at 18% per annum, it also means that flying must be safe. If flying was not safe, people would not be flying and there would not be that much of investment. So let us compare with this very descriptive chart. Yeah, on the left side you have different modes of transport, the bus, rail, van, all that. And on the right is a particular statistics called death per billion kilometers per people. Yeah, what it means is, quickly to come back, 1 billion is equal to 100 crores. Yeah, and 1 crore is 1 followed by 7 zeros. Yeah, so when you say 1 crore people travel 100 kilometers, It is also the same as one person traveling 100 crore kilometers. When you multiply both, you get 1 billion. Yeah, 1 crore people traveling 100 kilometers is called 100 crore kilometers people. Same way, one person is traveling for 100 crore kilometers. When you multiply them, it's the same 100 crore kilometers per people. Yeah. So what this means is, if a person travels by bus, yeah, for 1 billion kilometers, yeah, the chance of meeting with that is 0.4. Yeah. Railway line is almost the same, 0.6. Van is little higher. If you come down, you realize that walking is not as safe as we think so. We walk every day and we feel a sense of security. But if you look at the people who could probably die while walking, you realize it is very, very high compared to the bus and the rail. Yeah. But when you look at the air, transportation by air, it is 0.05. So this shows that we are very safe when we fly an aeroplane. And if you look down, cycling is maybe a little more safer than walking. And motorcycle is definitely the most dangerous one, 108.9. In fact, my advice for all youngsters like you is to ride a motorcycle with care. Yeah. Every day we hear about accidents here and there, and it's generally on the motorcycle, and especially college students. So know the statistics that when you ride a motorcycle, you definitely take a bigger risk. And the best way to mitigate this risk is to make sure you drive safely, use your helmet, use whatever extra safety features. Yeah. So the highlight of this is just to show you that how safe flying is. Yeah. It is a little notion among people that flying is, the statistics should make it very clear. Yeah. But safest means, or the safest modes of transportation is by air. Now, if flying by air is very safe, there should be some factors which actually contribute to this. Yeah. And what I'd also like to inform you is, every time I discuss something, I'd like you to draw a parallel between your student life as well as what a pilot leads. Yeah. And you'll realize that if you're as disciplined as a pilot, as hardworking and as alert as a pilot, obviously you will do much well in your studies. Now let's look at what is standard operating procedures and checklists. When we talk about a standard operating procedure, what is a SOP? Yeah, SOP is basically a step-by-step instruction to carry out a routine operation. Yeah, there's a step-by-step instructions to carry routine operations. What's the advantage of a SOP is the chance of making errors is very less, and it adds up to the efficiency. For example, if we have the normal flu in town, let's say there's a normal flu, or there is a normal malaria in town. Yeah. We may not have SOPs by the government. Yeah, the doctor, you go to your doctor and he gives you treatment, and you take the treatment, and you stay at home or whatever. But now if you look, when we have this COVID-19, you'll realize that there are a lot of standard operating procedures given by the government. If you have to go out, how you should go out. If you have to mix with people, what precautions you have to take. If somebody gets the virus, what precaution is to be taken. So the government has made sure that there are standard operating procedures for every aspect of this COVID pandemic. So when you have a SOP, it's very easy to follow, and it's also very difficult to make mistakes. So when there are emergencies, when there are abnormal procedures, a pilot always goes through SOPs. There is nothing left to chance. Yeah. So that's the importance of standard operating procedures, which in these times of the pandemic, most of us know. There are applications, every day there are talks, government circulars are there, orders are there, defining every small aspect of how we should live and behave ourselves. Yeah, so that is the best part about an SOP. And there's also something called a checklist. Yeah, I'll give you a very small example. Most of you must be probably riding a bicycle or a motorcycle or maybe a car. Yeah. If you want to ride on your motorbike, what do you generally do? You have the keys inside your house. So you take the keys, you go to your bike, sit on the bike, you kickstart it, or it's got an electric starter, and you ride. That's it. Yeah, that is how people generally ride a bike. Yeah. Now, what does a pilot do? When a pilot has to fly an aeroplane, he actually goes to the aeroplane and he walks around the aeroplane. He walks around the aeroplane looking at the engines, he's looking for any oil leak, any hydraulic leak, he's looking for any damages on the aeroplane. And after he's satisfied himself that the exterior of the aeroplane is fine, only then he goes into the aircraft. Yeah. Now, how many of us do this for a car? Somebody has to drive a car. I don't see anybody actually walking around the car, looking at the tires, looking whether any leakage is there. We don't do that. We just sit in the car, we click the ignition and we move. So that's the difference between doing something as a standard operating procedure and doing something normally, what everybody does. So you realize that if you have an SOP and if you take some small precautions like doing one external check, or maybe on the car, yeah, those who drive a car, if you first click one level, actually the electrics get energized in the car. You know how much fuel is there, you know how much is the oil, and you know a lot of features in the car, the safety features. But all of us click the car straight to the ignition. We don't stop at one click and wait to see whether everything is fine. Yeah? If you are taking a bike in the night, we don't check whether the headlights are working, whether the indicators are working. We all assume things are working, and they need not be. So that's the difference between leading a disciplined life, looking into SOPs, and having checklists. Now, what is a checklist? Something very interesting. If I have to start an aeroplane engine, it's not that I just sit inside and look at the other pilot and start the engine. I actually have to energize a lot of systems, maybe the hydraulics, the navigation systems, prepare the aeroplane, feed in the data, all that. After doing all this, I have to read a checklist. Yeah, and the checklist is read by one pilot and the other pilot responds. So on the right side, you see a small checklist before I start engines. Yeah, it's got something on cockpit preparation. You need not know the terms, but you should understand that even before I start an engine in an aeroplane, there is something that I read out and respond to a checklist. After starting the engine, again, there's one more checklist. Yeah, if let's say there's an emergency on board, then there's an abnormal procedure, abnormal checklist. If the emergency is very severe, there's an emergency procedure. So everything is done as per a SOP. So in life also, if you realize that if you can have some standard operating procedures, have some checks and balances, you are that much better off. So this is one of the features why aviation is very safe. Yeah? Now let's move to the next one. I'll give a very small example about the fuel on an aeroplane. Now most of you drive a bike and maybe you drive a car, and as you start having less fuel in your car or your bike, you probably get an indicator sign that you are on emergency reserve fuels. Yeah, the minute you see that, you know that probably you can go under 30-40 kilometers, so you look out for a petrol bunk and well, you stop there and you fill up your tanks. But when you look at an aeroplane, once I take off, there is no petrol bunk, there's no refueling. I have to make sure that I have to land and I should have enough fuel. If I can't land in a place, let's say I'm going from Madras to Delhi, I can't land in Delhi for whatever reason, I should have enough fuel to go to another place. And if I can't land there for whatever reason, I should have still enough fuel to divert to some other place. So you realize that even in a small aspect like taking fuel on an aeroplane, yeah, there is a huge procedure. There's a standard operating procedure. Let's quickly look into one. So this is just an example for an aeroplane called the Airbus 320. Let's assume that she is going from Madras, Chennai to Delhi. The fuel I require to go from Chennai to Delhi is called the trip fuel. That's about 7,000 kgs. For some reason, I can't land in Delhi. Then before I take off in Chennai, I already decide that I'll be going to Lucknow. I know the Lucknow weather. I know that the airport is open and I can land in Lucknow. So before I take off in Chennai, I already planned that if I can't land in Delhi, I require fuel to go to my diversion fuel, that is to Lucknow. So that comes to 7,000 plus 2,000 kgs. Yeah. Let us say in Lucknow, for some reason, I can't land for about 45 minutes. Yeah. The runway may not be open. Maybe some other aeroplanes are ahead of me. So I carry a reserve fuel called 1,500 kgs. Then it's quite possible on the route from here to Delhi, I may encounter some bad weather. Yeah, I may have to deviate because of the weather. So I'll have to carry some fuel for that, called the contingency fuel. Then for the aeroplane on the ground, yeah, when it is taxiing on the ground, it consumes some fuel. So even that is catered for. In spite of all this, if the pilot feels that, okay, I require a little more fuel because I may not be able to fly at a higher level or I anticipate any other issues, that's called the additional fuel. So for a small trip like from here to Delhi, where the actual fuel is only 7,000 kgs, you realize that I'm carrying 12,000 kgs. And that's the reason you never come across an aeroplane which ran out of fuel, because there's nothing like mid-air refueling. Yeah. So this is the operating procedure for carrying fuel. So like that in aviation, you realize that there is always a SOP and a checklist for every aspect. So if you can draw a parallel and you can do something similar, you realize that your chance of success and being more efficient is very high. Normal days, we don't do that because we know that always is a petrol bunk close by. Unless you're going long distance from, let's say, here to Bangalore, probably there's a time you really tank up your fuel and do some little calculation. Otherwise, it's all assumed that there are enough petrol bunks all over. So this is the importance of a SOP and a checklist. Now also let's look at the technology which goes into an aeroplane. Yeah, aeroplanes are made of very high-tech materials. Probably there are something called advanced composites. This could be carbon graphites, high-strength aluminium, titanium. There's a lot of these things go into this technology. So that is why an aeroplane is safe. You don't hear of the engine falling off. You don't hear of the aeroplane breaking into two or the wings falling off. So these are the superior technology which makes an aeroplane very safe. Similarly, if you draw a parallel, if you want to do a course, you make sure that you join a university or a college which has got the best of the faculty, best of the infrastructure, and only then your degree will have meaning. So this makes a big difference in your studies as well as in aviation. So let's move on to the next one. Communication. This is something very important. A lot of students have a feeling that if you do well in your marks, you will probably succeed. To a large extent, well, you're right. But the person who can communicate well is always the one person who is able to succeed better. That's why always in life we should learn to communicate. Yeah, and communication is actually a two-way process. It is not. It's just not that I'm talking to you and I'm communicating. I should be also able to understand whether you have understood me and you're able to acknowledge. Only then the communication is complete. I'll give a very small example. We have all heard of Napoleon Bonaparte. Yeah, he was one of the greatest military commanders in the history of the world. He was a French commander, and he had won a lot of battles. Now, what was his main significant point on that he was so successful was, if he had a battle strategy, what he used to do is he will discuss it with his generals. He discusses the battle strategy with the generals. Then the generals are expected to discuss this strategy with the people lower down. Yeah, so they will probably discuss it with the regiment which is going to be preparing for the battle. Yeah, then there'll be something called a platoon, and ultimately there is a frontline soldier. The frontline soldier should also be aware of what exactly the Napoleon Bonaparte has said. Only then the chance of the Napoleon Bonaparte's strategy will work. So Napoleon had a very great habit of giving his war strategy. Then after a few days, he will meet the frontline soldier and ask him, "What have you understood from my plan?" Yeah, and if the frontline soldier is able to repeat exactly what Napoleon had decided with his war generals, that means that the communication has been unambiguous, and the last person down the line is able to acknowledge it. Only then you can expect success. If not, what happens is by the time Napoleon tells something to his general, the general tells it to the platoon leader, and down to the last soldier, there can be a lot of change in the communication and the whole strategy may suffer. So one thing all of you as students should understand is we have to develop our communication skills, and this is very essential in aviation also. In fact, to be on a little humorous side, God has given us 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we listen more and talk less. And listening is also communication. Communication is just not talking. The more you can listen, the more you can communicate better. Now, there's something also called redundancy of systems. Yeah, this is an aeroplane taking off. In fact, it's an Airbus 340, and you can see 4 engines. Yeah, this aeroplane has got 4 engines. It has got 4 engines because if 1 engine fails, or if 2 engine fails, or even if 3 engine fails, this aeroplane can fly and come safely to the ground. Yeah. If 3 engines fail during flight, it can definitely continue to fly to the nearest airport and land safely. So the systems are redundant. We got 4 engines so that it takes care of failures. And nowadays, engines are so reliable. The chance of an engine failure is so negligible that most airlines have got only 2 engines. So even if 1 engine fails, it's okay to fly with the remaining engine and land safely. If you look at in the aeroplane, the hydraulic systems, we got 3 hydraulic systems. Electrics, we have 4 electric generators and a battery. If you look at the braking system, we got 3 braking systems. So aviation is very safe because of this redundancy. Yeah. But if you compare with something else, let's say you have a car. Yeah. If you have a car, you realize you got only 1 steering wheel. In an aeroplane, we got 2. You may be having only 1 speedometer in the car. In an aeroplane, we got 3. Yeah. So that's the reason aviation is very safe, because we have the same systems redundant. If something is not working, there is always a standby system which will work. Yeah. What it also means in your college life, you go for an exam, you always take 1 extra pen with you. Maybe you take an extra calculator. You want to go to the exam on your bike. If at the last minute you realize the bike is punctured, you have an alternate. Yeah, you'll probably call up your friend, take a ride with him, or maybe you'll have a taxi. So when you have multiple redundant systems, you realize that your success rate is very high. Yeah. So as a student also, it's the same thing. You should always have a plan A. If something goes wrong, you should be able to quickly have a plan B. Yeah? Something goes wrong doesn't mean that it's the end of that particular chapter or that particular event. You should be able to quickly move on to the next system. So that is what you can learn from aviation, and this redundancy of systems makes it that much more safer. Next is human factors. Yeah? In fact, any of the aeroplane accident, if you notice, it's always the human error, which is more than 50% of the times responsible for an aviation accident or an incident. Yeah. So there is so much depending on the human factor. Yeah? Even in a big company, a lot of decisions are taken by the human beings. If something goes wrong, obviously it's a human factor due to which a big mistake was made. Probably in a big company, somebody is losing money, but in aviation, we lose lives. So human factor is very important. Yeah. And one of the first things you'll notice about the human factor is you should have adequate skill and knowledge deficiency should not be there. Yeah, I'm drawing a parallel to you. What does it mean? That if you join a college, it is your job now to make sure that you learn whatever is possible in that college. Yeah. When you join a course, you should have the aptitude for it. You should have the willingness to learn and train. And the college should have good laboratories, good faculties. And this is the right time to improve your skills. So never underestimate the skill, which is definitely something that you have to develop. And similarly with your deficiencies in knowledge, you can learn during college. Maybe you can learn during your job also. But the right place to learn would be your college. Yeah. Then let's look at individual inadequacies. Everybody is not born with the same amount of intelligence or the same attitude. All of us have different capabilities. Yeah. So we should also know what is our limitation. If I know my limitation, I can definitely expect to improve on it. If I don't even know my limitation and weaknesses, then it's very difficult to improve on that. Yeah. So these are again things which college life is the best. It's the right time to learn as much as possible. And this time will not come again in your life, the college time. Yeah. What you learn now will actually shape your entire life and your career. So please be more focused. Yeah. And make sure that you have the right attitude, the aptitude. Hard work is very important. There is no compromise for hard work. The more effort you put in your work, the better it is. Yeah. Intelligence is one part, but it is definitely the hard work which always pays. Now, one more thing is the common errors we do, perceptual errors. Yeah, the name suggests we may perceive something wrongly. The fact is that something is in a different way, but our perception is different. So these are errors. Attention failure. Nowadays, everybody's got one mobile with them. Yeah, even when there's a class going on, probably we have a quick look at our mobile to see what's on Instagram or probably what's on Facebook or what's there on WhatsApp. Yeah, so this all leads to attention failure on the job. So this is something that is a big challenge for the students nowadays. Yeah, some colleges have got a policy of banning a mobile in the classroom. So I would not really know how it is here. But attention failure is something that I realize the present youth have a big challenge. Memory lapses, well, you have to be a little more alert, and obviously the lapses are not there. Habits, yeah, habits define a man. So make sure you have the right habits. Yeah, so these are all the human factors which come into play. Now, one more thing I'd like to inform everybody is the importance of a hobby. Yeah, you have a good hobby, it makes a big difference in life. It could be singing, it could be dancing, playing music, or some outdoor games, and all this also helps us to relieve stress. When we relieve stress, we are automatically much more alert in the classroom or when we are studying. Yeah, a good outdoor hobby makes you a very strong human being health-wise, and also mentally you are much more capable of learning something when you have good hobbies. Sedentary life is a killer. Yeah, nowadays most of the students I realize are watching television, and probably they are more impressed looking at games. You should be actually going out and playing something. So this is where I always emphasize, have some hobbies. It could be something like very simple hobbies like even singing or maybe even running. Nowadays a lot of people I see have taken up to running. Great hobby. Try to do a long distance run and you realize how healthy you feel and how better you are mentally. So never neglect an hobby. There's a right time in your youth to look at hobbies also. Apart from this, this pandemic has actually come as a big shock and a surprise for all of us, and it can also be a game changer. You guys are just making a career in your life, and you're doing a course for the next 2-3 years. Yeah. So what you should do is you should adapt to the new normal. Life is not going to be the same. Maybe the vaccine comes, maybe the vaccine doesn't come. Yeah. But life has definitely undergone a huge change from what it was maybe 6 months back. So you have to learn to adapt yourself. Yeah. It's very easy to say that we have to inspire the youth. But when it comes to youth, I can only see one particular person in my life, that is Abdul J. Kalam, yeah, the ex-president, the scientist, and one of the most simplest person, and he's written 2 books. Yeah, he's written 2 books, and one of them is called his autobiography, and the other one is called Wings of Fire. So his autobiography is called The Wings of Fire. It's a very great book, and it's an inspiring book for the aspiring youth. And there's one more book called Igniting Minds. Yeah, this also aimed at the youth and how you should rise to the occasion and light a fire in your mind and heart. And this fire to learn and innovate will actually push you to the envelope so that our country can realize its vast promise in different fields like economy, education, prosperity, and peace. So these are 2 books I'd like to recommend to all students. One is called his autobiography called Wings of Fire, and the other book is called Igniting Minds. Do read these books, and that would be the best inspiration for all of you. So I wish you all the best in your course, and I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to come and address you people. I also thank the college for inviting me. Now what we'll do is we'll have a small session of question and answers if anybody has got to say something. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Captain. Students who are students or anyone who is having any questions, they can definitely ask questions which Captain Sir will answer. One Vivek Das has asked, what is the highest salary after completing BBA in with aviation?
A good question. See, one thing I always notice is today's youth is very much focused on the salary. Yeah. From a young age, that feeling is there, okay, I should earn more. If the earning is not good, then I should not be taking up a job. Yeah. Now, I don't say you're right, I don't say you're wrong. Yeah, probably when we were of your age, we were looking at a good job, not from the salary point of view, but probably from what I can learn from that job. Yeah. So my actual advice would be, in your first job, if you don't have financial pressure from your house, if you are reasonably well and you have a choice of a job which gives you a lot of satisfaction but less salary, and you have a job which gives you less satisfaction and more salary, I would always suggest that go for a job which gives you more satisfaction. Yeah. But anyway, answering your question, yeah, this BBA aviation is something that probably your college will be no. But in the aviation side, what I can know is you can expect a salary in the range of about 30,000 rupees. There are people who do courses which are a little inferior to the BBA aviation, and they generally get salaries in that range of 25-30,000. So probably by the time you finish your course, and assuming that the aviation comes out of this pandemic, it's not only the aviation, the whole global industry comes out of this. Obviously, if you look at the salaries, what people are getting 6 months back or 8 months back could be in the range of 30,000 is what I assume. Knowing fully well that people with a lesser qualification get that sort of a salary. Is that okay, Vivek Das? First, coming to Vivek Das, what I could, you're not audible, but what I can make out is generally when you look at a university, it could be any university, yeah, there is a expectation from your side that if I do a certain course, I'll be getting certain salary. Now your expectation is based on what a college is advertising. But you should also understand that just because you do a course does not guarantee that you will get a job straight away with that salary. Yeah, there's always your expectation and what is actually available. There's always a difference. So you should always keep in mind that you are taking a good chance that if I do this course, I get this job and this salary. But it does not guarantee that all the people who do the course are going to get that sort of a salary. So this is what I think most students make a mistake. They blindly feel that if I do a particular course, with my eyes closed, I'll get a job. It doesn't work that way. You have to put in that little extra effort. It is quite possible that somebody may get a better job, somebody may have to wait for a little longer time, or somebody have to wait much longer and get lesser salary. These are all possibilities in life. Yeah. So it is not like there is success, there is failure, and these things keep moving in cycles. So you may have an expectation, but it doesn't mean that all the 100 times your expectation is met. So that is what I'd like to tell all the youth over here. And the next one I see from Jitin about Calicut. Yeah. In fact, I had a slide where I showed you that aviation is very safe. And then you realize that just about 3 weeks back, there was an air crash. Yeah, there's an air crash, and I think about 18 people lost their lives. The inquiry is still on. But what I can tell a little bit is to have an accident, it's not one single factor. It's not one single factor contributes to an aeroplane accident. Like I told you that the pilot has got SOPs, is very disciplined. The aeroplane has got redundant systems, 3 different braking systems. Yeah, there are so many factors which are there. But let us say when you add up all this algebraically, on a bad day, maybe the pilot landed a little ahead from where he's supposed to land. And the water that was standing on the runway ended up in the aeroplane skidding. And there was so much extra water that the aeroplane continued to skid only. And now it so happens the runway is very small. It's just about 9,000 feet. Whereas if you look at Chennai, the runway length is 12,000 feet. Yeah. And then you also realize at the end of the runway, there is no a safety area. There's always a safety area where if you run off the runway, aeroplane can stop. So that safety area is not there in Calicut. So there's a slope and a valley. So when you add up all these things, only then you will realize that an accident will happen. Yeah. So it's not one single factor. It will be the sum of quite a few factors. Now, what are these factors and to what extent each factor played in this accident? Probably in the course of this inquiry, we will come to know. But be rest assured that it was not one single factor. There are contributions from all sides. It's little unfortunate that it was a bad day and so many people, 18 people had to lose their lives. Yeah. Next, I see Ponnarasu wants to join the Indian Navy. That is really good. What I generally notice is there is a perception in the South, especially, that we should not join defense forces. I don't know why. If you look at North in Punjab, every family is joining the defense. You look at Orissa, you look at Delhi, UP, everybody joins the defense because the pay and the perks are very good. But in the South, there's always some misconception that life is very risky. Yeah, it's not really so. But I definitely see a lot of people from Kerala joining the defense forces. But when it comes to Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Goa, Andhra Pradesh, I don't see this happening. So this concept has to change. Yeah, the defense, especially the Navy, the Indian Air Force or the Army, offer you fantastic careers. You put in about 15 years in one of the defense and you come outside. Yeah, you're a completely different gentleman. You have confidence in life. When you see a ex-army person, the way he talks, the way he behaves, yeah, it is something definitely you can envy. So never give up a chance where you can join the Navy or Army or the Coast Guard. Definitely look at these options. They're really well paying and they give you a lot of job satisfaction and you become a completely different person. What's the next one? What is IATA Airport Management and what type of work? That question probably your airport or probably LC Das can answer this. Yeah. See, airport management is huge business. We have a lot of airports and there's a completely different system that operates. You have the air traffic control, you have the engineers, you have the planners, the management people. So it's a complete different system and the work could be different. It could be work where you have to go onto the apron that is on the runway and work is outdoors, or it could be inside an office. So probably this question can be answered by somebody else. Yeah. Is there any age limit? So I understand this age limit is for getting a job. Generally, most of the places, the age limit is 35 years. If you have a degree and maybe a little more experience or just based on a degree you want a job, generally it is 30 years or 35 years approximately. It depends on industry to industry. Yeah. What can I do for getting an aviation job after Dbaca completion? Okay, good question. I think everybody wants to get into university, wants to know what is the guarantee of a job. Yeah. In this 3 years, what I would probably consider you is if you had a degree today, you will realize that getting a job is very difficult because of the pandemic times. Very difficult to get a job. You have the experience, you got everything, or maybe you had a job and you lost it. That's the way, ironically, it is today. Yeah. But if you're joining a course today and expect to come out 3 years later, probably your chances are really good because the economy is definitely going to open up. Yeah. So when you say, what can I do for getting an aviation job? Well, you do well in your studies. If you have a project, you make sure that your project you do well, improve your communication skills, improve your overall knowledge, and I'm sure that you should be able to do well in a job interview. Okay, quickly coming to commercial pilot license. If you want to be a pilot, there are only 2 ways in India. One is either you become a commercial pilot license or you can join the Indian Air Force or the Navy. Yeah, the Indian Air Force and the Navy also take you ab initio. That means you need not have any flying qualification. You can join them and they train you. If the Air Force or the Navy trains you, obviously you have to put in about 10 years of service with them. After you put in a 10-year service, you can have an option of coming out of that the Navy or the Air Force and then join civil aviation. Yeah? Or you can continue over there. Now, if you don't want to join the defense and still want to do flying, then you do something called the commercial pilot license. That's generally about a 2 year course. And nowadays, a job requirement is you have a graduation. You have a graduation, science graduation and a commercial pilot license. The chance of getting a job is good. If you asked me this question 6 months back, and I've told you the aviation industry is really bright for a pilot. There's huge demand. And people are going abroad and coming back, and jobs are all lined up for a pilot. You invest a little money, about 25-30 lakhs in a commercial pilot license job, and the job guarantee is very much there. But today, after this pandemic, I realized that getting the job of a pilot, it may not arise in the next 2-3 years. Yeah, in the next 2-3 years, it will take that much time for aviation to come back to its original level. That means there are people who are already in the industry and who are not able to work because there are no jobs. Yeah, that is the bad side of this pandemic. So in the next 2-3 years, this thing will definitely change. But if you want to invest in a CPL now, this is not the right time. The commercial pilot license, investing your money and becoming a pilot right now with an amount of 30 lakh rupees is not worth it at the moment. You can probably do a diploma course, do your engineering, do something, and then when the time is ripe, you can probably do your CPL. Doing your CPL takes about 6 to 8 months. So you'll have to wait for the right time, which would be another 2 or 3 years also. What is the retirement period in the airport job? Okay, I only meet young blood in airport. Okay, good question and good observation. Yeah, generally in the airport industry, the retirement is 58 years. Yeah, but nowadays we see a lot of youngsters. That is because there is a boom in the aviation industry. When there's a boom in the aviation industry, you see all the youngsters are coming in. If there is no boom, you realize that is the youth is not coming in, and obviously it is the people who are already in the job or working. So a good sign of a good booming industry is you find a lot of young blood. And that is a very good observation that a lot of youngsters have found good jobs in the aviation industry just before this pandemic hit us. So this is a time that you have to just wait for a few more months, and obviously the demand will definitely pick up. So retirement is generally 58 years. For a pilot, it could be as high as even 65 years. If there's demand for experience, you could go up to 65 years. If you're looking at a private airline job, yeah, ground job, you've done a management course, then in a private company, there's no retirement age at all. Yeah, people are 60, 65, and they still work as a director, they still work as a consultant. But for a government job, it is generally 58 years. Okay, understood that pilots will find it hard to get placed immediately. Still, there are many other jobs in which related to logistics. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. Now the industry is in a lull. Not only the aviation industry, the whole industry is in a lull, the global industry. Yeah. But things will definitely pick up. The chance of aviation picking up is very high in India for the simple reason we're a huge country. People have to move. We don't have the best of the roads and the railway systems, and air transportation is one of the most economical system as well as one of the most reliable systems. When I was a youth in your age, I used to probably go by a train because flying was very, very expensive. A ticket from Madras to Delhi used to cost about 30,000 rupees, and a train journey used to cost about maybe 500 to 1,000 rupees. Yeah, so it's always easier to take a train, which used to take me about 2 days to go from Madras to Delhi. But today, a flight ticket costs you actually 6,000 rupees, and a railway ticket may actually cost you about 2,000-3,000 rupees. You pay 6,000 in 2.5 hours, you're in Delhi. You pay 2,000, you take 2 days to go to Delhi. So you realize that the potential for aviation is huge because our country is huge. Now you look at a small country like Singapore, they got only one international airport. So if aviation is not able to pick up in Singapore, it's not very surprising because they only have to look at international flights coming to Singapore. And in this pandemic, everything has stopped. But in a country like India, we have more than 300 domestic airports. So the aviation will definitely pick up in India much faster because of the sheer size of our country. So one of the first industries to pick up would definitely be the aviation industry. Aviation industry means everything related to that, the logistics, the security, the management, as what you have put here. Yeah, is that able to satisfy you? How much students can benefit? Yeah, like I told you, you could probably benefit more by being in the aviation industry than any other industry, because this industry will definitely pick up once this pandemic comes down.
Thank you very much, Captain Sir. I would also like to thank our principal of the college, Dr. B. Satish Kumar, the director of AJK Institute of Management, Dr. Mohanavel, faculty members and students who have all supported this program and organized this program today. And I am sure that these type of programs will definitely bring in more interest among the students, especially the students who are doing BBA, to join the aviation program, and also the students who are doing catering science and hotel management. They also can join this aviation management so that they can learn more about aviation and they can join the aviation industry, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. And I thank everyone for joining this session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. All the best for all the students, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.